Welcome to this 365 Freedom Strategy session. Today we're breaking down why visibility isn't an algorithm problem, it's a self-trust problem, and how to fix your market presence.
Yeah, it is really good to be here. This is actually a topic that comes up constantly in our consulting work with founders and high-level creators.
It really does. I mean, everyone wants to know the tactical fix, right?
Right, the hack.
Yeah, the hack, the magic time of day strategy to just, beat the system entirely.
Exactly. But we need to look under the hood at the engine driving the whole operation, which is, well, it's rarely the platform itself.
No, it's really not. We are essentially analyzing the internal mechanics of market authority today because when we look at this landscape of low engagement or a lack of visibility or
Just that pervasive feeling of shouting into the void.
Yes, exactly that feeling so many leaders experience, we have to ask, where does the finger usually point?
Outward. I mean, almost exclusively outward.
Right.
You hear it literally every strategy audit. Things like, the algorithm hates me right now.
Or the platform is saturated.
Yeah. Or I missed the timing on this trend. It is a very comforting narrative.
It is comforting. Why do you think that is?
Well, because it places the locus of control and really the blame completely outside of the leader's hands. I mean, if it is the algorithm's fault, then there is absolutely nothing wrong with my message.
The machine is just broken.
Right. The machine is broken. It completely absolves the creator of responsibility.
It's the perfect shield, honestly. If I can blame the tech stack, I don't have to look in the mirror.
Exactly.
But the premise we are operating on today and what we are seeing so clearly in the 365 Freedom Client data is that this is fundamentally a lie we tell ourselves.
It's a highly sophisticated form of avoidance.
Yes, it is a distraction. The pivot we really need to make in this session right now for everyone listening is accepting that the actual bottleneck is almost always internal.
Always internal. It is not a crisis of distribution.
Not at all.
The platforms distribute content just fine. In fact, they are practically starving for high-quality, resonant content. What we are actually facing is a crisis of conviction.
A crisis of conviction. That is a heavy pivot to make, but it's a completely necessary one. And we are going to be looking at a specific metric throughout this discussion. I want you, the listener, to visualize this.
It's a crucial metric.
It really is. It's the ratio between the value of an idea you have and the speed at which you publish it.
And that ratio, it tells you everything about a personal brand's health.
Everything.
Because if the value is high, let's say you have $1 million insight, but the speed is excruciatingly slow.
Because of doubt.
Right. Doubt, editing, second guessing. If that speed is slow, the market impact drops to near zero.
It's flatlines.
It completely flatlines. You can have a world-changing concept, but if it sits in a Google Doc for 3 weeks being polished, its market value depreciates rapidly.
But let's get into the actual diagnosis of this. We are calling this the algorithm versus the mirror. We touched on it, but let's go a bit deeper into this misconception.
Sure. Why is the belief that visibility is a technical game so incredibly prevalent? I mean, why do smart people who run complex, successful businesses convince themselves that the reason they aren't growing is simply because they didn't use the right hashtags? Because technical games are solvable.
Right.
They're solvable with logic and checklists.
That makes sense.
It is so much easier to buy a course on the best keywords for 2025 or how to hack the audio trends than it is to actually sit down and ask, do I trust what I'm saying?
Oof. Yeah, that's the uncomfortable question.
It's very uncomfortable. Most people just assume visibility is about strategy or timing or pattern recognition. They think there is some secret code that, once cracked, just magically unlocks the audience.
And if they just crack the code, the floodgates open.
Exactly.
It turns marketing into an engineering problem rather than a communication problem.
Precisely. But here's the reality check we have to deliver today. Strategy, at least in this specific context, is often just a procrastination tool.
A procrastination tool used to avoid vulnerability.
Yes. The core thesis we operate on as consultants is this. Your visibility expands the exact moment you trust your message enough to be seen with it.
Enough to be seen with it. I want to pause on that phrasing because it is key. It implies that we are often hiding behind the strategy.
We absolutely are.
We use the mechanics of the platform as a buffer between our true voice and the audience.
We do. Think about the causal link here. Algorithm patterns, they change every few months.
Sometimes weeks, honestly.
Sometimes weeks.
Yep.
So if you build your presence on technical hacks, you are building a house on quicksand.
Right.
But human psychology, the inherent desire for connection, the hunger for true leadership, that remains constant.
That hasn't changed in thousands of years.
Not a bit. If you solve for the human, the algorithm will naturally follow.
Okay, so if we stop looking at the hashtags and we start looking at the actual behavior, what does the symptom profile of a self-trust problem look like operationally?
That's a great question.
How do we identify this in a creator or a founder? Because I highly doubt anyone explicitly writes, "I lack self-trust" on their daily to-do list.
No, they definitely don't label it that way. But it is rarely subtle if you know what to look for. The most obvious symptom is what we call the draft graveyard.
The draft graveyard, that definitely resonates. I think most people listening probably have a plot of land there.
We all do, to some extent.
Yeah.
But for some founders, it is their entire operation.
Just endless drafts.
It is drafts that pile up but literally never ship. It is the folder full of almost ready content. Operationally, it manifests as this rigid belief that every single sentence needs to be utterly perfect.
We see that all the time. You see founders agonizing over a single adjective in a LinkedIn post for 45 minutes.
Yes, and they aren't editing for clarity at that point. They're editing for safety.
Or they have that pervasive feeling that the message is just never quite ready.
Right, there's always one more edit.
One more check, one more team member who needs to look at it and approve it.
Exactly. That is not quality control. We need to be clear about that. That is fear disguised as professionalism.
Fear disguised as professionalism, that is a powerful way to frame it. And that brings us directly to the core concept of this session. We need to define the hesitation tax.
Let's do it.
Let's operationalize this concept for everyone. What exactly is the hesitation tax?
Simply put, it is the gap between having an insight and sharing that insight. Every single moment that ticks by in that gap is a tax.
So time is literally taxing the idea.
Exactly. The longer the gap, the more tax you pay. And the currency you are paying with is your potency and your market momentum.
Yeah, so just to make this practical, if I have an idea at 9 in the morning, let's say a really sharp reaction to some breaking industry news, and I share it at 9:15, the tax is low.
Very low. The energy of that idea is incredibly high.
But if I share that exact same idea 3 days later,
the tax is enormous. You have completely diluted the energy. You have likely overprocessed the sentiment. And this is where we get into what we call the revision loop.
Right, the revision loop.
This is the actual mechanism by which the tax is collected from you.
Let's analyze that loop, because I think people heavily mistake this behavior for just doing the work. They think, I'm refining my message, I'm being a true professional. Why is that specific mindset a trap?
It is a dangerous trap because it feels productive.
It feels like work.
It does. We see so many creators rewrite, revise, and rethink their ideas until they completely lose the power of what they originally wanted to say.
They sanitize it.
Exactly. We constantly mistake polishing for improving. But often, especially in thought leadership and brand building, we are actually stripping away the jagged edges that make an idea stick in the first place.
The jagged edges are the hooks. That's where the personality actually lives.
Precisely. When you polish a piece of wood too much, it becomes smooth, sure, but it also becomes slippery.
It's hard to hold on to.
Yes, it becomes generic. We see content all the time that has just been edited into total submission.
It becomes safe content.
It becomes flattened. And ultimately, it becomes invisible to the market because it lacks a distinct point of view. It sounds like everyone else because everyone else is also editing toward that exact same safe corporate mean.
It's the corporate press release effect. It sounds grammatically perfect and absolutely nobody cares.
Nobody cares because there is no human pulse left in it. And there's a massive opportunity cost here too. It's not just about the content being boring. It is about the severe resource drain.
Let's talk about that resource drain.
When you don't trust your voice, everything operationally takes longer. Writing a simple email takes 3 hours instead of 15 minutes.
Which is a massive drain on a founder's time. You cannot scale that.
It is paralyzing. We call it draft purgatory. Ideas get shelved because the creator is afraid the idea isn't strong enough yet.
But the strength of an idea isn't found in the editing room.
No, it's found in the marketplace. You literally cannot test the strength of an idea inside your own head.
That is a critical distinction. I want to make this concrete for you with a case study. We have a specific scenario from our internal files that illustrates this perfectly. We are calling this the unpolished pivot.
Yes, this is a classic micro-story we encountered recently. The subject was a creator who was absolutely caught in the perfection trap we just described.
They were deeply stuck.
They were. They were convinced, completely intellectually convinced, that operational excellence meant flawless copy. They believed that if a post wasn't structurally perfect, It would permanently damage their brand reputation.
Which is a very common fear we hear. People think if I have a typo or if this thought isn't fully cited with 3 sources, I look completely unprofessional.
Correct. And this fear created a massive bottleneck for their entire content pipeline. But then they ran an experiment.
A vital experiment.
It wasn't a complex A/B test with software. It was a behavioral change. This creator decided to post something without the usual rigorous overthinking process.
They deliberately skipped the revision loop.
They bypassed it entirely. They released a message that felt, to them, incredibly unpolished. It felt risky. It felt naked.
To them, it felt like they were making a huge mistake.
Yes, but to the market, it felt direct.
And what was the actual response? Because I think our listeners might expect to hear, oh, it bombed, but at least they got it out of their system.
It was quite the opposite, actually. The outcome was significant. The post didn't just perform adequately, it resonated deeply with their ideal clients.
The qualitative data is what really matters here, though.
Absolutely. The audience comments specifically noted that the content felt more human and much more direct than their previous highly polished work.
That is the key right there. The audience didn't say, wow, look at this sloppy grammar, how embarrassing. They said, I feel you. I understand exactly what you mean.
Exactly. And that feedback loop is crucial for building self-trust. That moment showed this creator that trusting their voice was the actual missing ingredient in their visibility strategy.
So what is the strategic takeaway from this case study?
The takeaway is profound. The audience wasn't looking for a perfectly constructed essay. They weren't looking for a doctoral thesis. They were looking for the creator's actual, authentic voice.
It fundamentally changes the definition of quality in this space.
It really does.
We usually define quality as being completely free of errors, but in the specific context of market authority, quality actually means full of truth.
Yes. High fidelity versus high polish. We want high fidelity. We want a clear, undistorted signal of who you are and what you believe. Polish often lowers the fidelity because it actively masks that signal.
Let's transition this into the broader mechanics of how this works. We've seen the case study, we know what happened, but how does this work systemically across a whole market? We have this equation we use. Internal conviction equals external authority.
This is essentially the physics of market authority. There is a direct, measurable psychological link between how a founder internally feels about their message and how the external market receives it.
Break that down.
The core statement is this: the more you trust your message, the more people will learn to trust you.
I want to unpack that relationship further. Why does my internal feeling of trust change your external perception of my authority?
Because human beings are incredibly adept at detecting uncertainty.
We really are.
We can smell it. Evolutionarily, we are wired to detect when someone is unsure. When you are performing an expert role, you are usually masking insecurity. You're trying to sound like an expert.
Which takes a lot of effort.
It requires polish, it requires jargon and rigid structure, but being an expert requires directness.
It's the difference between a rehearsed, stiff speech and a casual conversation with a trusted mentor.
Precisely. Your audience isn't looking for perfection, they're looking for clarity. They're looking for authenticity. If you are constantly hiding behind edits, you are obscuring the very thing they want to buy into.
And this brings us directly to the safety illusion. I think this is where most leaders actually get stuck operationally. We edit heavily because we want to be safe. We don't want to get canceled. We don't want to look stupid. We don't want to be proven wrong in the comments.
It is a massive paradox. We think editing provides safety. But in the current attention economy, hiding behind polish is actually the riskiest thing you can possibly do.
Why is it risky? Most people would say caution is safe.
Because it makes you completely commoditized. If you sound exactly like a corporate press release, you are entirely replaceable.
We blend right in.
If you sound like a textbook, you are boring. Visibility doesn't come from perfect posts. It comes from trusted posts. The risk is not that you will look messy. The true risk is that you will look and sound like absolutely everyone else in your industry.
It's about signal clarity.
Right. Think of it exactly like a radio frequency. When a leader hesitates, or second-guesses themselves, or dilutes their language with a bunch of soft qualifiers, the signal becomes noise.
It's static.
It's static. But when a leader speaks with absolute conviction, even if the grammar isn't totally perfect, even if the lighting in the video isn't studio quality, the signal is incredibly clear.
The market grants authority to those who communicate without the wobble of insecurity.
The wobble. Yes.
I love that image, the wobble, because you can actually hear the wobble in text. You can hear it in that endless preamble people do before they get to the actual point of their post.
You certainly can. It sounds like I just wanted to hop on here to say, or I might be wrong about this, but, or using 10 massive words when 3 small ones would do the job perfectly.
That is the wobble, and it kills authority faster than any typo ever could.
It destroys it.
So we've diagnosed the problem. We understand the internal mechanics at play here. Now we need to actually fix it. We need to move into tactical implementation. How do you, the listener, operationalize self-trust? Because you cannot just wake up tomorrow morning and say, I trust myself now.
No, it doesn't work like that.
You need a protocol.
Correct. This is entirely about behavioral modification. We use the 365 Freedom Protocol to deliberately break the cycle of hesitation. We have 3 specific steps that founders can use to start seeing results today.
Let's start breaking those down. Step 1 is the one message challenge.
The instruction here is very simple, but it is notoriously difficult for perfectionists to actually execute. You must share one message today without over-editing.
We need to define over-editing for them. What are the boundaries here?
It means you write it. You read it exactly once for basic clarity. And then you hit post.
No sleeping on it.
No, let me sleep on it. No, let me send it to my marketing team for a quick review. The goal is not to be sloppy. We aren't advocating for carelessness here.
No, precision still matters.
But we are advocating for being unfiltered. You have to let your message breathe. Let your audience actually hear you.
It's really about closing that gap we talked about earlier. You want to forcibly shorten the time between the thought occurring and the publish button being pressed.
Exactly. You are systematically retraining your brain to realize that the world won't end if you ship an unpolished thought. You are building up a tolerance for exposure.
Which brings us to step 2 of the protocol. Prioritize simple over smart.
This is a huge one for industry experts. The trap of trying to sound highly intelligent often leads to incredibly convoluted messaging. We constantly try to prove our intellectual worth through complexity.
That look how many syllables I know strategy.
It never, ever works. The fix is straightforward. Post the simple version. Post the clear version. The version that doesn't hide behind a wall of polish and jargon.
If you find yourself reaching for a thesaurus, you need to stop.
Stop immediately. If you find yourself trying to impress your industry peers rather than actually helping your ideal customer, stop. Simplicity requires infinitely more confidence than complexity does.
That is a very powerful reframing. Complexity is essentially a hiding place. Simplicity is pure exposure.
Precisely. It leaves you nowhere to hide, which is exactly why the market trusts it.
And step 3 of the protocol, shift the metric. We talked about the value versus speed ratio earlier, but what are we actually measuring on a daily operational basis?
You have to stop measuring perfection. You must start measuring conviction.
How does that look in practice?
When you look at a piece of content right before you ship it, do not ask yourself, is this impressive? Ask yourself, do I actually believe this?
Do I believe this? That is such a fundamentally different bar to clear.
It changes the energy of the content entirely. If you believe it, ship it. If you are just trying to impress people, delete it. Visibility thrives on clarity and humanity, not perfection.
So if you shift your key performance indicator to a conviction score, your output will skyrocket.
And ironically, so will your engagement metrics.
Because it connects right back to the core premise we established. Your visibility expands the moment you trust your message enough to be seen with it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy in the best way possible.
It absolutely is. And this naturally leads us to the conclusion of this strategy session. We really need to look at the compound effect of this behavioral shift, because this isn't just about optimizing one single post.
Right. Let's summarize the exact logic chain we have built here today. Hesitation kills visibility. Perfection is simply a mask for a lack of self-trust. And the market aggressively craves human directness.
That is the triad.
Yeah.
And if you understand that triad deeply, you understand the momentum factor.
Explain the momentum factor.
The more you hesitate, the harder it becomes to build any kind of momentum. It is exactly like trying to drive a sports car with the parking brake fully engaged. You are burning a ton of fuel, you are making a lot of noise, but you're going absolutely nowhere.
But conversely, decisive action builds a rapid feedback loop of confidence. You post something directly, nothing bad happens. In fact, maybe something genuinely good happens. Someone comments that it resonated. So you post again. The fear shrinks a little more each time.
And suddenly you are highly visible, not because you hacked the algorithm, but because you simply stopped hiding.
We want to leave you with a final provocation today, something to take with you as you look at your to-do list or your content calendar this week.
I want to challenge everyone listening to seriously consider what they are currently shelving or rewriting right now. What is sitting in your drafts folder collecting dust? What is sitting in your head that you haven't even typed out yet?
The exact thing you are afraid is too simple or not quite ready yet.
That is exactly the thing you need to share today. The barrier is not external. It is not the algorithm. It is entirely internal. It is your own permission to speak. So our final advice to you is this. Share something with conviction, not caution.
Conviction, not caution. That is the mantra moving forward.
It's the only strategy that actually works long term.
If you're ready to stop over editing and start showing up with conviction, visit 365 Freedom online to join the community. This has been a 365 Freedom Strategy session.